Here it is, the all-new BMW G310RR. Well, this is the most affordable BMW sports bike that you can buy in the country or anywhere else in the world. However, I bet you have seen this motorcycle before because this is not actually an all-new motorcycle. This is a TVS Apache RR 310 in BMW's clothing. Well, yes, this is a motorcycle that's been around since 2017, but BMW has finally decided that they want to do more than just platform sharing. So they're sharing an entire product with TVS. The thing is, it is a bit pricier than the TVS and it offers fewer features. So is there any reason to buy this motorcycle? Or are you being shortchanged just for that badge? Let's find out. I'm a little confused as to how to start this review because usually we start with the design of the motorcycle, but on this thing you have seen virtually everything. This is the Apache RR 310, so everything here is identical to the Apache. That means you get the same fairing, you get the same headlamps, you get the same tank, you get everything exactly the same as the TVS. Now what's different? Well, of course it comes with BMW paint options, and this is the style race option. So of course it has got that BMW quality because if you touch and feel this paint, the sheen on this paint, well, it is exactly like how it is on a bigger BMW, on an S1000RR or even an R1250 GS. So that's typical BMW. The quality, even with TVS, the fit and finish, everything is quite good, and this motorcycle feels premium for sure. Now other than that, of course there is no change, but yeah, you get these cool graphics here, like this BMW over here, the BMW roundel, and on the tank also you've got this G310RR graphic. So of course it screams that it's a BMW, and on the road you can clearly see the difference because this motorcycle definitely grabs a lot more attention because of that badge. And honestly, this is also a very good looking motorcycle. We have always maintained that the RR 310, the TVS Apache RR 310 is one of the finest looking sports bike in the market. Even if you consider bigger bikes, the proportions and everything on this motorcycle, they're really perfect. So on that front, I think there's no complaining because this is a fantastic design. It definitely still looks quite new and it is definitely very attractive. Now, my problem with BMW is that they haven't done a single thing on this motorcycle design wise to differentiate it from the TVS. Well, this doesn't have an identity of its own. Let's put it this way, because there's absolutely nothing that's different. I wish BMW had changed the headlamps, reprofiled them, could have gone with those asymmetric headlamps of the first gen S1000RR. They could have tried something, but I think they have done a lazy job here. Of course, I understand that this motorcycle is being built in the same plant as the RR 310, the TVS. And of course, if BMW wanted to change the styling on this motorcycle, so that would require new tooling and the works. So of course, they've gone for a safer option and they didn't want to increase the production cost. So that's why they have stuck to this design. But I really wanted BMW to be a little more imaginative because right now, you'll still recognize it as a TVS with BMW badging. It's not just the features, but BMW has also skimped on some important features on this motorcycle. Well, compared to the TVS, this has fewer features, and that means it doesn't get the adjustable suspension, the fully adjustable suspension of the Apache RR 310 under BTO scheme, and there are more features missing. Like for instance, this doesn't get the Michelin Road 5 tires, which are far superior to the Pilot Street Radial on this motorcycle. Similarly, the instrument cluster, well, yes, it's digital, it's exactly the same as TVS's, but it gets BMW graphics. But again, it's missing out on Bluetooth connectivity, and you can't use turn-by-turn navigation and other smartphone features. So these are some of the areas which will bug you if you want to buy this motorcycle, because this is, like I said, it's pricier. It's pricier by around 20,000 rupees compared to the regular BS6 Apache RR 310. Now, of course, on the TVS, the suspension is optional, but this motorcycle is 20,000 more. So for that kind of money, you can get adjustable suspension with the TVS RR 310. So these are the features that are missing on this motorcycle, and this is something that is really hard to digest because you want this motorcycle to at least be at par with TVS, if not better. Well, if there's one area where there's no compromise, it is in terms of powertrain, because this motorcycle has the exact same engine as the TVS Apache RR 310 or the BMW G310R, the naked version. So it gets the same 312cc single cylinder engine that's liquid cooled, and it produces around 33.5 bhp and 27 Newton meters of torque. Now it also gets 4 riding modes, and it has got a ride-by-wire throttle. So on that front, it's identical to the TVS. Well, in terms of performance also, it is a familiar motorcycle because the way it behaves, the way it rides, it definitely feels like a G310R or the Apache RR 310. That's because the engine is very tractable. It has got great low and mid-end performance, and at the top of the rev range also, it is quite punchy. Now, what I absolutely love about this engine is that when you're riding it at low speeds or in the city, it is quite manageable. It doesn't feel like it's a highly strung engine. You don't have to rev it out. You can ride in traffic, or you can exploit any gap without really revving the nuts of the engine. So in that regard, this is a very peppy powertrain, and you'll actually enjoy riding it in the city. Now, similarly, once you go past 5000 RPM, well, that's when there is a step up in terms of performance, because that's where this engine starts to sing and dance. Absolutely love that nature of this engine, because at the top of the rev range, it is really got that punchy performance and you enjoy opening the throttle. But like the RR310 or the G310R, or with this engine in particular, this is not the most refined unit. It is gruff, and of course there are noticeable vibrations. Now, compared to the G310R, which is the naked motorcycle, I felt this has more vibrations, and that is probably down to the fact that you are sitting in a very committed posture. So you're putting a lot of weight on the handlebar, and because it's vibrating, you can sense everything buzzing. On the G310R or on the G310GS, you're sitting in a relaxed posture, so you're not putting a lot of pressure on the handlebar. But in this, you are, because it is a committed riding posture. So you definitely feel vibrations from the handlebar, especially at high speeds. If you're cruising around 120 and all, you'll feel this definitely buzzes a lot. Similarly, the pegs, they also buzz, and around this tank area, you have a little bit of vibrations creeping in. Of course, like I said, that is something that's a problem or the character of this engine, so you can't really change on that. But in terms of overall performance, I really enjoy this engine, because it has got grunt throughout the rev range. It's not a peaky motor, so I really enjoy it. And if you want to tour on this motorcycle, I think it is going to be very comfortable, because I have owned the TVS Apache RR 310, the first gen, in the past, and I think that's one of the greatest sports tourers in the country, because this powertrain is definitely capable of munching miles quite comfortably, and you don't really feel that it's strained. The only problem is, of course, it's not refined. It is a little gruff. So if you can live with that, well, I think you'll have no problem with this engine in particular. Similarly, the gearbox, it's quite smooth. The gear ratios are quite short, so again, that helps you enjoy and exploit the performance of this motor. The clutch action is also very light. It comes with an assistant slipper clutch, so that's covered. So overall, in terms of engine performance, I think it is a very happy puppy. But yeah, it still isn't the most refined unit out there, and you will definitely notice it. You'll notice it more on this motorcycle as compared to the G310R or the GS, which I think are slightly less vibey than this motorcycle. There are no surprises to be had in terms of ride and handling as well, because this, like the Apache RR 310, it is a beautiful handler. The ride and handling balance on this motorcycle is just spectacular. You can ride this motorcycle hard around corners, you can push it, the balance, the weight forgives you. It is really a beautiful motorcycle because it's so beautifully balanced. The turn-in is really quick. It is a planted motorcycle, and it goes exactly where you point it at. Mid-corner stability is phenomenal, and this motorcycle, despite not having adjustable suspension, well, I think it's perfect for our road conditions. You ride over bad roads, you go over speed breakers. It is a very absorbent suspension, but once you start pushing it around corners, well, that's where it doesn't lag. It doesn't feel like it's a lazy handler, and that means the chassis, the suspension, they're perfectly set up for our conditions. In fact, last time out when I reviewed the Apache RR 310 BTO, I said that's the perfect motorcycle for Indian conditions, because you can take it virtually everywhere. Of course, it misses out on that adjustability part. It doesn't get adjustable suspension, so it loses some marks. It's not quite perfect like the BTO. But overall, I have to say that in daily riding conditions, you'll have no problem with this motorcycle. Like I said, the handling is phenomenal. The ride quality is also brilliant. And this is a comfortable motorcycle. Even if you're pushing it hard, it's very comfortable, very forgiving, and you'll absolutely love the experience on this motorcycle. You can keep up with big bikes as well if you're going to ride around twisties. And the engine has enough grunt, and if you're in the right gear, this is actually a very potent and very fun motorcycle to ride around twisties. Now, if there's one complaint that I have, it's the tires, because like I said in the beginning, the Pilot Street radial tires well, they don't really do justice to this chassis because they give up quite easily. If you start pushing really hard, if you brake really hard, you can see the tires, they don't have enough grip on offer, and that's the only limitation that this motorcycle has. Because the Apache RR 310 also, when it was launched in 2017, it came with these same tires, Michelin Pilot Street Radials. So I've ridden the Apache RR 310 with the Road 5 tires on the track as well, and that bike, it's just phenomenal. The stability, the grip, the feedback from those tires is just brilliant. I think it makes sense to say that the Road 5 tires are probably the best tires for this motorcycle. So you definitely miss them. In isolation, these are good tires if you're going to ride daily, if you're not going to do hardcore cornering, if you are just riding leisurely around hills. These tires are good. They do the job quite well. But it's just that you have ridden the RR 310, you know those tires, the potential this bike has with those tires. So I think that is something that you definitely miss. So if you want to exploit the full potential of this motorcycle, I think you have to put those Road 5 tires on this one. But again, that will also jack up the price of this motorcycle because it's already a little expensive. As for the braking hardware, it's exactly the same as the RR 310. So it gets disc brakes at both ends. It has got dual channel ABS, and I actually like the lever feel on this motorcycle because earlier TVS RR 310s, well, they had a very vague sort of lever feel and feedback, but this one they've definitely worked on it, and I also noticed it with the RR 310. So this has more feedback, and the ABS is not intrusive because there are 4 different modes. So if you go to track mode or if you go to sport mode, the ABS in that mode, it's not really that over intrusive. So I really like that, and I think in terms of braking also, I think they've really upped the game, and this feels like a proper small sports bike. On the whole, this is not something that we didn't expect. This is a motorcycle that's always been around, and it is actually just a TVS Apache RR 310 with less features. So does it make sense to buy this motorcycle over the TVS? Well, objectively speaking, not really, because this motorcycle is 20,000 more than the RR 310. And this version, this one with race style, this funky paint scheme, is 2.99 lakhs. So that makes it 35,000 dearer than the Apache RR 310. On top of that, this particular variant is priced quite close to the KTM RC390, the all-new version, which has got more firepower, which has got technically more features, and of course, it is, I'd say, an overall better sports bike. Now, coming back to the BMW, the only reason you would buy it because it is a BMW. Now, of course, for the sensible ones out there, this doesn't make sense because this is just a TVS in BMW's clothing, right? But truth be told, it's the other way around because BMW developed this platform. It's BMW's platform because back in 2016, they were the ones who announced that they wanted to launch an entry-level motorcycle to push their sales in global markets. And they chose TVS as their manufacturing partner. So of course, it's BMW's technology, it's BMW's R&D, but it is something that TVS used. The bodywork is from TVS. Of course, the engineering in terms of chassis development, everything, that's TVS's. I give it to them. But overall, this motorcycle is probably more BMW than TVS. It's just that the RR 310 came before this. Now, that's one argument settled. The other thing is I've owned the TVS Apache RR 310 and I think it was a wonderful motorcycle. But today, if I have to choose between the BMW and the TVS, I'd say I'd probably choose the BMW. And the reason for that is, again, it might not sound very logical, but it's not just the badge, it's also the brand experience because this is a premium brand. Whereas TVS's service, it's going to be TVS. Of course, their services are good and they are quite efficient. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that it is a mass market brand. So it has got that sort of thing. When you go for TVS servicing, that shows in the ownership. Whereas with BMW, you've got very limited dealers and it is your chance to enter into that BMW ecosystem. Now, of course, logically, it may not make sense to you, but I know where I'm coming from. So for me, a BMW would make more sense because I'd want that sort of ownership experience, that premium ownership experience. Now, the other misconception a lot of people have is that TVS is going to be cheaper to maintain than the BMW. Well, that's not exactly the case because, again, I have got my bike serviced multiple times and I used to check and compare the service costs with BMW as well. Now, of course, there are some bits that are expensive with the BMW because, again, it's a BMW, right? But overall, there's no night and day difference between the servicing costs. The consumables, the parts, well, everything on the TVS are going to be nearly as expensive as the BMW. So that's something that you have to consider, because BMW is not so much more expensive that you don't consider it over TVS. The other thing is the service intervals. So this one has a 1-year service interval or 10,000 kilometers, whereas for the TVS it's 5,000 kilometers or 6 months. So if you're going to send your motorcycle twice in a year for servicing, because you want that 5-year warranty, which is available with TVS. This one has 3 years unlimited kilometers warranty, but TVS has 5 years and 50,000 kilometer warranty. So yes, in that case, you have to send your bike for servicing twice with TVS, but with BMW, you only have to send it once. So you're going to pay for those service bills once in a year, not twice. And that is something that you should consider while putting your money on either of these bikes. Now, of course, a lot of people will say BMW is just about badge, but it goes more than that. And that's what I exactly told you, because there is a lot of difference between the ownership experience of a BMW and TVS. Again, long story short, the TVS Apache RR 310 is definitely the better bike, the better package, and better value for your money. But the BMW gives you something different. If you're not really a hardcore biker, if you're not going to use that adjustable suspension, if you're happy with the BMW badge, and there's nothing wrong with it, because BMW has got that sort of pull. It is one of the world's most valuable automotive brands. So for a lot of people, it may not matter if your bike has adjustable suspension or not. What they want at the end of the day is a bike that looks cool and you feel good while riding it. So as a product, I think the BMW is 90% as good as the Apache RR 310. And then it's up to you whether you want a motorcycle because it has got that brand pull, or whether you want a product that has got it all. So in either case, both these motorcycles are great offerings, but at the end of the day, you have to decide whether you want to think from your head or whether you want to think from your heart.